Thank you, Julia, for the introduction. Today's session is about scale computing and how we are a perfect alternative for your VMware solution. Short agenda overview of this day. My name is Filip Renaerts, and I'm a sales executive for the Benelux region, the Nordics, and Central Eastern Europe. And I'll do this session together with my colleague William David van Collenburg, who is Senior Solution Architect for the EMEA region. If you do have any questions, as Julia already said, just post them in the chat, but also after this session, you can reach out to me or William personally if you have any questions. Today's agenda, we will start with an overview of the virtualization market today and the predictions in this new year, 2025. After that, we will do also an introduction or a short recap what we do at Scale Computing for those who are new to Scale Computing. Then we will zoom in on a specific case, which is Edge and Robo sites. Then William will do a technical demo of our product and fleet manager. Then we have the Kahoot quiz, where you can win a prize. And then we have the Q&A session if you have any questions left. Let's start with what we see today in the virtualization market. So maybe let's start with looking back at the beginning of 2024. Exactly 1 year ago, we saw a lot of changes in the market. A lot of customers are using, again, a VMware solution, but with the acquisition done by Broadcom, they create a lot of turbulence. We saw that they changed their product strategy, their pricing strategy, and this they did because they wanted to focus on 70 to 80% of their revenue, which is generated by 600 strategic customers or accounts. This maybe come over as a weird strategy, but for Broadcom, they did in the past a lot of this type of acquisitions, and you could say they're steering more to like a private equity company, and they want to make sure that the revenue for their shareholders is the highest. And by doing this, they focus on their most percentage of revenue, which is 80%. However, a lot of partners, but also end customers are left in the cold with this strategy. At that point, a lot of customers, certainly in the beginning of last year, they were evaluating what they are going to do. So not only the prices change, but also they are evaluating if VMware is the right solution for them. If you look at this survey, for example, we see that VMware solution is also a complex solution. Nearly 50% of users believe it is a complex solution where you need to spend a lot of time every week of managing and patching around 12 to 13 hours. But not only that, you also need people who are trained and certified to do that. We see that you need around 3 experts, depending on your infrastructure, of course. And these training and certifications, they are also quite expensive. This all together with all these changes in the market and with reevaluating the solution, people are looking for alternatives. However, that is quite difficult because a lot of customers are used to VMware, maybe using that for a couple of years or longer. And the market, there are a lot of solutions. A lot of solutions out there. So if you look at what we saw last year in predictions, Gartner predicted that 1/3 would move away from VMware in the first year, and 1/3 will move away the second and the third year. However, because a lot of customers are so used to using VMware for maybe a decade or 2 decades, the reality is that this cycle is way, way longer. It's longer. And that has to do because a lot of customers, they went for renewal, maybe for 1 year or 2 years, just to solve their problem and to find out what an alternative would be. However, that big increase and spike in interest, that is still there. We see that. We saw an increase in the beginning of last year of 500 to 600% in demand, and that hasn't gone away. So we more see that it is an S-curve on the longer run, and it's not a change that will be in 1-2 years, but more from 1 to 7 years, because an infrastructure is most of the times there for 5 to 7 years, and some of the customers did renewal. So we could say yes, a third of migrations is not started in the first year, but a third of the migrations of the customers are taking the first steps to make that migration. So that is a bit of what we learned after this first year of the market changes. If you look at alternatives, it is a big market. It's a market with a lot of solutions. So we believe that we at Scale Computing can give you a really good alternative. However, you as a customer or partner, you can also have different sources to make your decision or base your decision on. For those who are not familiar with G2, G2 is the biggest software marketplace where there are a lot of peer-to-peer reviews and evaluations. The end of last year or the winter 2025, so now, we are the leader in server virtualization. That is because 96% of the customers on that platform recommend Scale Computing to another customer. In the hyperconverged category, we are winner of the best support and easiest to use. That is because we have 4 out of 5 stars for all reviews on that platform. If you look at where we are mapped on the right side, so you see most likely a lot of vendors that you may be evaluating today. So we are in total on the right side in the high performers with a medium market presence. So we are a growing company, fast growing company in the EMEA region. So that is why maybe some of these new customers don't know us yet, but we are in the high performers part. Going to who we are as a company, Scale Computing, for those who are not yet familiar with us. So Scale Computing, we are, of course, virtualization. We offer a virtualization solution, but our solution is a hyper-converged solution. Our hyper-converged solution was launched in 2012, so that is 11 years ago. In the meantime, no, it's more, sorry. So quite some time ago. And we have a lot of customers in the market. So some logos you see on the right side, we are a US-based company and our EMEA head office is in the Netherlands. And we have 15,000 customers all over the world with 24 patents already that we have. We established in the meantime a complete technology stack. So you see a lot of logos on there like Lenovo, Acronis, Parallels. This is to make sure that we can offer a total solution to our customers. Having a look at customers, at the logos, maybe start why are customers going for Scale Computing? One of the main reasons, for example, if you're looking for your data center solution, we offer a solution which is really easy and simple. That is one of our key differentiators. It's so easy to set up and to manage, and this is how we can improve their operational efficiency by 50%, and we can reduce the overall cost 70% by doing this. Another use case where we also will zoom in later in this webinar is the edge use case or robo sites. So the edge use case, some of these customers, Ahold Delhaize, which is a retail store in Belgium, but also Coca-Cola, using this in their manufacturing plants. When we talk about edge, we talk about the use case where you want to have a couple of virtual machines running on-premise on location. This to make sure that you have high availability. For example, these customers don't want to run certain VMs in the cloud to prevent networking issues. And with our hyperconverged solution, we can give them an on-premise solution which is high available, and that is gives them maximized uptime. So instead of, for example, having one server or one PC running on a manufacturing plant or in a store, we can give them a hyperconverged cluster, a microcluster with Scale Computing. I said already, so one of the pain points if you have a VMware solution, so it is you need a lot of time to manage it. So, and your team is not getting any bigger. So that's the first part. The second part is the people that you need to manage it, they need to be trained and you need good people to do that. So it's because it's a complex solution. So this is something we tackle. We want to give you a really easy solution and which you can set up really fast. it needs to be affordable. VMware some years ago was an affordable solution, but with all the pricing changes, it can become really expensive. So we want to give you an affordable solution. And last part is we want to give you that flexibility. The name scale computing, we want to give you the opportunity to scale. If you, for example, have a cluster of 3 nodes and in 2 years you need to expand, you can easily add a node and scale your infrastructure. I already spoke about hyperconverged infrastructure, but maybe some of you are not familiar with that. So let's just go one step back. This is what we see at a lot of VMware customers. So this is a traditional 3-to-1 infrastructure where you have your virtualization layer on top. You have your server, networking, and your storage, your SAN or NAS. If everything works well, it's a good solution. However, it's a complex system because you need to deal with a lot of different vendors, your server, networking, storage, virtualization, often management platform. So multiple vendors. If you need to do updates, you need to make sure that it's compatible with hardware, with software, etc. And when something goes wrong, it's a lot of pinpointing to know where maybe your problem is. So it can be really high cost of managing this type of infrastructure. What we do at Scale Computing is we make it a hyper-converged. So we combine that virtualization, compute, and storage. So it's an all-in-one solution. So yes, we offer appliances and our software as one. And our software will see the storage as one pooled storage, so the hyperconverged. So the virtualization sees that one pooled storage of all. You can deploy our infrastructure. So if you, for example, if you have a new scale computing infrastructure, you can deploy this in 30 minutes. Under 1 hour, you're ready and set. You can create virtual machines just in seconds. And we also have a self-healing AI platform built in. This makes sure that you have a really easy setup, which gives you a really low total cost of ownership of managing this all. On top of this, you only have one point of contact or one single contract that you have. So you only have scale computing. You don't have additional software licenses, only scale computing. Our platform, it consists out of 4 parts. So you have Hypercore. Hypercore is what I just showed you. It is the virtualization. It's the storage hypervisor disaster recovery. This is running on premise on your nodes on location. Then we have the hardware appliances. We have a really broad portfolio to serve multiple use cases. The HE series, the first 2 these are for the edge use cases, for the just a couple of VMs on premise, and the HC series is more for your core data set. Then we have Fleet Manager and services. These are 2 optional parts. So of course we have services to help you, but also we have Fleet Manager. Fleet Manager is a cloud tool, a cloud orchestration tool to manage all your clusters on premise. So for example, if you have a manufacturing plant, 5 manufacturing plants running a couple of VMs, then Fleet Manager would be the cloud tool that you can use to manage all these different infrastructures. Scale computing. So if you're looking for your core data center use case or you're an MSP, we can do that really well. But what you can also do is we can give you a hyper-converged data center for really small use cases. And that's something where we are quite unique in the market. So we call that edge or robo locations. You can find these use cases everywhere. So I already spoke about retail, grocery stores, but also in casinos, hospitality, in windmills, solar plants, in energy industry, but also in telco, in manufacturing. So again, on-premise where you need just a couple of virtual machines from 1 to maybe 15 virtual machines. All these use cases, they struggle with the same, they have the same struggles. So we're talking about 10 to hundreds to even 1,000 sites. On these locations, you have no or limited IT staff. You want to have a really quick and easy deployment, but also the management after that. For sure, you want high availability because when something goes wrong, it's really expensive to travel to that location or to fix that. And last but not least, you want a low total cost of ownership. However, what we today see in the market is this is what we see as current infrastructures. So, for example, the first one, customers are using a single server or sometimes maybe even a PC with that workload on top of that. But if that PC or single server goes out, there's no high availability. Second one is they're virtualizing the virtual machines. Imagine if you have a retail store, you have 100 of them, and you're virtualizing that VM point of sale, for example, system, and networking goes out. No one can buy anything in that store at that point. So immediately you have a loss. And then the last one, instead of a 3-2-1 infrastructure, sometimes they use 2 servers. But that, as already discussed, is quite cumbersome and can be really expensive to manage that all. However, a lot of people never thought about using hyperconverged for these use cases because hyperconverged is often associated with a high cost and using a lot of resources. And this is where we are different. The resources that we require of running our software, the RAM is only 4 gigs, and we use a fraction of a core to do that. If you compare us to different vendors in the market, you see there's a big difference. So you could say, okay, you can run more virtual machines on the same hardware, or even a step further, if you need only like a couple of virtual machines, then you can use really small data center to do that, which your cost of your hardware will go down immense. So on these edge locations, you can use this setup. So you have, for example, a 3-node system with scale computing, which gives you that high availability, super simple. And on the right top side, you see our HE100 series. So these are the small systems that we have. So the footprint that this takes is really, really small. It's based on the NUC systems. To give you an idea of how that would be in reality, sorry for that one. To give you an idea of how that would be in reality and price-wise, a small setup of an HE100 series with, let's say, 4 cores and 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte is around 10,000 euros for 5 years to have that infrastructure. So we're talking about 5,500 customer price for the hardware and 4,500 for software for 5 years. And then we have on the bottom, you have Fleet Manager. That is that optional part to manage all your sites. So let's say that you want to do a rollout for 10 sites. Then you have the hardware software price for these 10 sites. And then you have a pricing for Fleet Manager if you want to use that. This is an indication, of course, when you have more virtual machines running, there's different licensing if you want to have more hardware specifications. Then I like to mention this so you know where it can start and to get an idea of what it would cost for a store or ship or a telco site. On the bottom, I mentioned again Fleet Manager. So Fleet Manager is the part that you will use to manage multiple sites. So it's a cloud platform. You see a screenshot on the right side. William will dive in shortly in how this works and show you the real product. But the idea is that you can monitor all these things. You can monitor what software is running, when you need to do an update, and all the technical specifications on that side. So now I want to give stage to William to do a demo of Fleet Manager and our platform. And if you have any question, please type in the chat so we can tackle them at the end of our session.
Let's if you have any questions, please type in the QA, not in the chat. But other than that, yes, you're definitely right. Thank you, Filip. So let me quickly share my screen. So today I'm going to show you 2 different things. I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the scale computing cluster interface. The cluster interface you would use to manage the cluster locally, or if you have just a single cluster or something like that. And after that, I will dive into Fleet Manager. Fleet Manager is being used when you have a multitude of clusters, or if you have multiple locations. This makes it a lot easier to manage all of the clusters at the same time. So without any further ado, I see in the QA that there's a question about the main differences versus Nutanix. I can actually really dive. I can dive really deeply into this, but then we would need a webinar of 2 hours. So for that question, I'm going to say that I've answered it live, but please reach out to your contact at Hermitage to schedule a separate discussion with Filip and myself to go deeper into this subject. A very quick difference, one that I can immediately highlight, that is very, very apparent, is that we do not use a controller virtual machine. So in Nutanix, but for instance, also in HPE SimpliVity or other software-defined storage solutions. So even when you're using data core or something like that, on each and every node in your cluster, you need to have a virtual machine, a controller virtual machine, or a virtual storage appliance, if you will, that manages the hypervisor solution, that manages the storage solution, that manages the networking solution, et cetera, et cetera. And it's this controller virtual machine that binds all of the separate nodes together as a hyperconverged infrastructure. In our solution, we actually do not have a virtual storage appliance. We have all the intelligence built into the virtualization layer. So our storage layer, our own file system scribe, which I will not go into too deep during this session because that would take a lot of time too. But our file system, the one that we've created for ourselves, is actually managed from within the hypervisor, which makes it a truly hyperconverged infrastructure instead of a bolted together product. As you can see, if I take a look at the nodes in my cluster, so each of these 4 blocks is a node in one of my clusters, you can see that my system only consumes 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. In Nutanix, the controller virtual machine, the CVM, has a minimum size of 16 gigabytes, and this is only when you have a 32 gig set of hardware with limited storage. In our case, no matter how big the cluster is, the systems that you're seeing over here are these microsystems, but we have 19-inch models with up to 2 terabytes of RAM and up to almost half a petabyte per node. Even those machines only consume that 4 gigabyte in RAM and only 1 core, whereas the Nutanix CVM consumes at a bare minimum 16 gigs of RAM and 8 vCores. So there's quite a lot of differences between Nutanix, but as said, if you want to do us a deep dive for you, definitely reach out to Hermitage for a demo. The cluster overview itself, like I said, this what you see over here is one of those micro clusters. So it's a smaller cluster. The main thing that drives us and the main thing that has driven us to create this product is simplicity. And simplicity actually starts in the top left-hand corner where you see the logo and you see the version number of the cluster. One of the things that I really like, and you can check me out on LinkedIn, I've worked for VMware for almost 6 years. One of the things that I like here is how simple everything is. And simple actually starts with one of the most complex things in your infrastructure, and that is an upgrade. Within scale computing, an upgrade of the entire cluster is easier than an upgrade of your mobile phone. And the reason that I'm saying easier is that the procedure to do it is exactly the same. When there is an update, you will get a pop-up that says an update is available, and then you can click on it, go to the update page, and then just click a button. So basically the same as with your mobile phone. The big difference with your mobile phone is your mobile phone will not function during an upgrade. The skill computing cluster will just continue to work whilst the upgrade is being run. And the reason that it continues to work is we have automated all those things that you would normally do yourself. So normally you would put a node in maintenance mode. Once it's in maintenance mode, you would do the upgrade. Once the upgrade is done, you would take it out of maintenance mode and put another node in maintenance mode. So you're actually manually moving around all these VMs within your system. In our clusters, this is fully automated. Fully automated in the sense that we do this automatic rolling upgrade, but also fully automated in the sense that we actually do not only perform the software upgrades, but if you buy the appliance model, so the hardware with the software, we will also do all of the hardware updates. And this actually addresses a question from Yuri that I see in the Q&A. He asks, can I purchase the Scale hypervisor and use it with our own hardware? Well, there is no such thing as a Scale hypervisor. It's a Scale hyperconverged infrastructure solution. So keep in mind that it's not just the virtualization, but it's also the storage that is below it, which makes this harder. However, you're not hearing me say no. We are actually working on a software-only proposition. In certain cases, we are already able to do hard and software separately. So the answer isn't no, but yes needs to be a discussion up front. So if you have more questions about that, again, please reach out to Hermitage and schedule a meeting with Filip and myself, and we can dive into what is it that your own hardware is, and would that be a compatible solution? So the answer is yes, but please reach out. So I'm also going to say that I answered that one live. In the middle over here, we see an overview of our resources. So currently you're seeing that I'm using 10% of my CPU, 41% of my memory, et cetera, et cetera. At disk, I can actually click on that to get a detailed overview of what's happening in terms of storage. So over here, you can see that I'm currently using 1.09 terabyte for my virtual machines. I'm using 1.7 terabyte for my snapshots. In the efficiency section, you can see that I'm saving 2.3 terabytes through deduplication. And in the provision section, you can see that I've actually provisioned 30% more than that I'm currently consuming. And if I were to actually also consume that 30%, I would still have round about 25% free in my cluster. Now, we already talked about simplicity, and currently we're talking about 3 different technologies that we've included. I was talking about snapshotting, I was talking about thin provisioning, I was talking about deduplication. The other thing that's really, really simple in this solution, and I want you to take this into account when you take a look at that price example that Filip gave earlier, we do not do feature licensing. Feature licensing in the sense that if you want replication, you need to buy a new license. If you want et cetera, et cetera. We don't do that. So everything that is here in the demo, everything that I talk about is always in the product. Now, the cluster and Fleet Manager are 2 separate products. However, if you buy the cluster, you will get the cluster with all its features and functionalities. When you buy Fleet Manager, you will get Fleet Manager with all the features and functionalities. So ease of licensing too, you don't have to be a licensing specialist to be able to sell or use this. On the right-hand side over here, you see notification center. Again, everything is built to be as simple as possible. So not only will you get a notification when something is wrong and you can click on that and immediately go to the right page, but just below there is also a button called support chat. If I click on this, this will take me to our website. So you can use the button in the GUI, or you can just bookmark this page to have it always available. And in the right bottom hand, because it saw that you came from the cluster, it will say chat with an expert. I'm not going to do that right now because they're going to be very cross with me if I do this for demos, but I can just click on this and start a chat session with one of my colleagues to get my problem fixed. Now, you heard me say one of my colleagues, and this is actually true. We do not have any external call centers enrolled. We do all of our support work ourselves. So we have our own call centers in the UK, in Indianapolis, and in San Francisco, and we're planning on opening one in the APAC region. And when you call in, or when you email in, or when you chat into our support department, you will always get one of my colleagues, and not a friendly person working at a call center running a script asking you, have you powered it down and up again? Now, you heard me say chat, you heard me say email. We also have a partner portal where resellers can actually manage our service calls for their customers. And most important, we have a lot of phone numbers available. They will all redirect to one of our call centers. So it's a local number, but it will redirect to one of our call centers that I just mentioned. And you will always get one of my colleagues on the phone, and you will immediately get a specialist. This service is 24/7. So as long as you have a support contract, again, the support contract is also as easy as possible. There's only 24/7. There's nothing else. So that's the top part of the interface. Over here, I can see that I've got 4 nodes. You can recognize them by the IP addresses. The blue lines are actually a reference to how much RAM they are consuming. I also have a disk overview, but since this is a micro cluster, the disk overview isn't that exciting. But basically, this gives you an overview. Then below here, you have the virtual machine space. So all of these blocks that you see, we call them VM cards. By the way, on our roadmap is actually also a list view for this. So you can also get a traditional, like you're used to from, for instance, VMware, a list of virtual machines that you have over here. And basically you can see that I've got multiple groups of different VMs in there. And that actually answers 2 of the questions that we have in the QA, if there's any plans for integration with other backup software vendors for agentless backup. We actually already have those. So currently, Acronis has support for us with both their cloud solution and their on-prem solution, and Storeware has integration with our products. There's others coming up, but currently we very recently signed an NDA with one of the bigger vendors, which I'm not allowed to name during this session, for creating an integration that we expect to land during Platform, which is our big event and big marketing event in May in Las Vegas, where we're going to do all of the new announcements. So I cannot name, unfortunately, because this is a very big one for us. It's a very big one in your market. So you fill in the blanks for yourself, but I'm not going to say no again. So I'm going to mark those one as done too. For instance, with Acronis and with Storeware, and also with the new solution that is upcoming, we abuse our snapshotting mechanism to take agentless backups. So basically what happens is when a backup needs to be made, and let me see if I think this one is being backed up. Yeah, this one is. As you can see, a utility snapshot is being made. That utility snapshot is being mounted to the agent VM, and from that snapshot, the backup will be taken, change block tracking will be done, etc., etc. Now, when I talk to a lot of VMware people and they see that there's 6 active snapshots on this system, they get very nervous, because within VMware, if you have active snapshots, things become very slow, things become very large, and snapshots can grow and grow and grow until they fill up your data store. I already mentioned that we have our own file system, which is called Scribe. Scribe is a file system that is distributed by nature. So Scribe always exists across all of the nodes in here, but Scribe is the only distributed file system that actually is block-based distributed file system, meaning that a virtual machine that runs on node number 1 can address the blocks, not objects, but blocks on each and every single node in the cluster. And by doing so, is able to give each and every virtual machine block level access, which is not just a great performance improvement, but it also takes away the problems that you would normally have with snapshots. Both of the problems, growing in size and making everything very slow, we have addressed with this file system. So where with VMware, you would have a maximum of 2 or 3 snapshots for every 2 or 3 weeks, and then you really need to delete them. We also have a best practice. Our best practice is that you cannot have more than 5,000 snapshots per virtual machine with a maximum retention time of 10 years without any performance loss. Because we do things in this way, and because we do our own change block tracking, which we relay to the backup solution, A, we are more efficient and it does not have an impact on the VMs, and B, the backup solution has a really high performance access to all the data that it needs to back up. So combine that with our deduplication technologies and you have a very, very, very efficient storage subsystem. Now, obviously, there's a lot more I can do over here, and I really, really want to ask you, if you want to have a deep dive demo of this system, to reach out to Hermitage and schedule a meeting with Hermitage, Filip, and myself. So that's the short overview for the cluster. Then over here, I have Fleet Manager. Fleet Manager is a cloud-based tool that allows you to manage multiple clusters from within a single pane of glass. And with multiple, I mean up to 50,000 clusters per organization. And as an admin, you can be in multiple organizations. So with me over here being in 4 different organizations, I would actually be able to manage up to 200,000 clusters in this single pane of glass. Per organization, I have a dashboard with my health status, with the number of clusters I have in here, with the different versions that I'm running across my cluster, and a list with current conditions. And these are sorted by the most important ones. As you can see, for instance, this LTK mini server actually has a big problem because it's isolated on its backplane network. Then I have a list with clusters. Over here, you can see that I'm currently managing 7 different clusters. Luckily, the ones with WDVC are mine, and all of those are healthy, so I'm a good scale computing administrator. But you can see over here that I've got multiple clusters. One of the cool things that you can immediately see is, for instance, over here, I also have access to the update mechanism. So you can see that over here, there's actually a update available for the IS150 SNS over here. And this is not my cluster. This cluster is actually owned by my manager, so I'm not going to start the update on his cluster, but I could from here start this update over here. I can click on a cluster, get more information, and over here you see exactly the same information that you saw on the cluster itself. However, because this is a cloud-based solution and we have a separated allocated storage for that, within Fleet Manager, you also have your historical data for your cluster. You can see what happened, and as you can see over here, just before the holidays, I had a power outage, so over there everything was turned off. But you can see what's happening with my storage, you can see what's happening with my RAM, you can see what's happening with my CPU. Just a little bit lower, you have a overview of the nodes. One of the things that I really like is within the cluster overview, you only have totals. So you only have the total of everything that's happening on your entire system. In Fleet Manager, you have an overview of what's happening per node too. And then over here, I have the VMs. Now, one of the things that I think is really cool, this demo cluster that I'm working on right here is actually, I'm in that particular network. As you can see, I'm accessing it over a local network. But if I have a cluster that is not in my local network, I could, for instance, go to our public lab. Our public lab is a facility in the US that everybody in this call can actually also get access to play around with the tool. Again, reach out to Hermitage to get that to work. But this is actually a network in the United States, and I don't have access to that particular network. I don't have any VPNs running. But over here, I can say, you know what, I need to have a connection to pub1. So I can go to pub1, I can see all the data, and I can simply just click on Go to Cluster, and this will set up a connection to that cluster, which is secured by us. So you can see that the URL that I'm currently connecting to is a Scale Computing URL. I can simply just log into this if I remember my password. No, I didn't. I have them documented somewhere, but I could actually log into this cluster. Now, one of the questions that I very often get is, hey, I'm already authenticated to Fleet Manager. Can't I single sign on to that cluster? That is a feature that's actually currently being developed. But to be perfectly honest, me personally, I don't like that, because if you have something like that, then somebody who has access to Fleet Manager immediately has access to all of the clusters or the clusters that he has rights to. So I don't like that, but it is a feature that is being developed right now. And this secure link, as we call it, is not just on a cluster level, but if I were to go into this cluster and I want to have a connection to one of the virtual machines that is running over there, I can do exactly the same and start the console for that virtual machine. As I am not authenticated to that particular cluster yet, again, it will ask me to authenticate against that cluster. If you want to see what that actually looks like, I can actually do that over here. And as you can see over here, I have a console. Now, the last feature within Fleet Manager that I really adore. For the rest, it allows you to manage the cluster. So that's it. One of the things that I really adore is if I go to my personal lab again, so over here, and I go to the clusters tab, you can see that I have deployed clusters and I have staged clusters. Staged clusters means that these clusters have already been prepared, but they haven't been installed yet. We have something that's called zero-touch provisioning, which means that we can have clusters automatically installed. So let's imagine you are based in Latvia, but you have a customer in the Netherlands and you need to install that. Now, obviously, you are more than welcome to come to my beautiful country. I come from the Netherlands. It's really gorgeous. You are more than welcome to come over, but the flight, etc., it's very expensive. So it might be better to do the installation remote. And we have the facilities for that. So I can click on Add Cluster over here. I can give this a name. So I'm going to call this demo. It will first ask me to put some generic information in there. So what is the net mask that we're going to use? What is the gateway that I'm going to use? What is the backplane? So we have two different networks. We have a front end or a LAN, and we have a backplane. Backplane is where the cluster communicates with itself, where HA happens, where live motion happens, all those kinds of things. So I have to put a net mask in there. And if I have micronodes, so only if I have micronodes, I also need to have a backplane VLAN ID. And in my case, that's always 3333. And then I can start adding nodes. And in this list with nodes are all the nodes that the system knows I've purchased. This is a cloud solution. This comes from our systems, obviously. So you can see which systems I've purchased. I can add them to there, hit close. As you can see, because it's from our system, any license codes that you might need, which by the way are hard tied to the serial numbers, are already in here. And all I have to do over here is put in the network. So I'm going to start with 11. And I'm going to make one 12, and I'm going to make one 13. Then for the backplane, I'm going to use another segment. There we go. And that's all the information that I need to put in here. Now, when I say create cluster, it will actually prepare this cluster for installation. And as you can see, it's waiting for the nodes to come online, and all the nodes are pending. As soon as these nodes arrive at their final destination where they need to be, and they come online, so you explain to someone, hey, please put a power connector and a network plug in there. When it gets to the HCP address, it's able to download this configuration and will completely start to install itself. So a manual installation, so when I have the 3 nodes and I'm going to install them manually, will take me approximately 10 minutes to install and an hour to rack and stack. If it's a larger system, if it's one of those micro systems, then it's probably 15 minutes to rack and stack. This way will take away those 10 minutes. It's just a matter of putting it in a rack or putting it wherever you want it to be. We have customers that actually have this as a stack on their desk. Put it anywhere that you want to have it. As soon as it comes online, the cluster will start to install itself. Once that self-install is done, you simply go back to clusters. That cluster will turn up over here, and I can use that go to cluster functionality to log into the system. So I'm going to leave my demo at that because we also have other plans within this call and a nice quiz. There's one open question that says, is it possible to add any additional RAM or HDD to the cluster nodes if needed? RAM and CPU can actually be upgraded. Hard drives, because of the way that Scribe works, we always sell our systems completely full. So the hard drives would be completely in there. We do, however, have the possibility to add, for instance, a storage-only node. So a node that does participate in the storage system, but does not participate in virtualization. So new storage would usually mean a new node. The reason that we also do this in a storage-only fashion is, for instance, if you have a Microsoft SQL licensing or Microsoft Data Center licensing, or anything like that, anything that can virtualize will consume a new license. So if you buy a new node, you have to buy a new SQL license, you have to buy a new Microsoft Data Center license, etc., etc., etc. When we add a node and we put it in storage-only mode, that would not be the case. The other thing, if it's possible to add additional RAM or HDD, I would also say that whether or not that is needed depends on the right way of sizing. Now, if you have opportunities, if you have customers that you want to discuss, if you want to use this as a customer, again, reach out to Hermitage to get a meeting with Filip and myself in there, and we can go knee deep into all the sizing requirements, etc., and how to plan for growth. One of the last things I want to add to that question is the fact that we have something that's called mix and match. We can actually mix different models, different configurations, even different generations within the same cluster. And our hard limit for that, our theoretical limit for that is that a node of 7 years old should still be usable. So I could still add new nodes to a 7-year-old cluster. The last time I did this was actually at a customer with a 10-year-old cluster. So I actually added new nodes to a 10-year-old cluster, then live migrated all the virtual machines from the old nodes to the new nodes, and then retired the old nodes. But this was still I was still able to do this in one large cluster, which not only helps for expandability now in 2 years, in 5 years, or in 7 years, but it's also a way to make lifecycle management a lot easier. So that was my demo. Thank you so much for paying attention. And back to, there we are. Back to Filip and Julia, sorry.
Thank you, William. Yes, a lot of questions are already answered, but if you have more questions, type them in the Q&A.
And now we will start the Q&A session if you have anything left, so type in some questions. And if there are some others that left unanswered so far, so Filip, William, please, go ahead.
So we answered already quite some questions during the webinar, but if you still have any of them, please ask the questions. If not, thank you for joining this webinar today. And if you have any questions after the webinar, you can always reach out to myself or William or Hermitage, of course.
Sure. So you can always contact us via info@hermitage.lt. We will be very happy to help you to look for some suitable solutions together with Scale Computing. In the meantime, maybe some last questions if you have any. Otherwise, I believe we can reach the end. Maybe some last comments also from William and Filip.
So all I want to say is thank you for your time. I'm not entirely sure yet because Filip hasn't confirmed it to me, but I think that in a few months' time, we'll also be visiting your lovely countries again. So
Yes.
Keep an eye out for any marketing from Hermitage around that subject.
Sure. So with that, thank you for this very interesting webinar. Thank you, William. Thank you, Filip. little applause from our side. Thank you for this amazing audience who had so many questions. I believe so many questions to follow. We also welcome you to join the remaining webinars from our VMware Alternatives webinar series. And well, let's stay in touch. Best of luck, everyone, today and for the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.